So let's keep moving forward with the orbit module. I want to give you guys two more examples of what the orbit module can be used for. And the first one we're going to do right now is talk about how the orbit module can be used to give very quick random rotation for things like environmental effects. So let's think of something like snow or fireflies, which we're going to do right here in a second. But snow comes down, and especially like light snow, its velocity and direction and all that just keep kind of changing randomly because it's so light and it's picking up, wind currents in the air, and it gives it, that beautiful dancing motion that we see. And we can use the orbit module to do something like that. So let's go ahead and let's do this inside of a test map so we can see it in action. So inside of our browser, let's do File, New Map. And I like night lighting because it's a really cool kind of stylized nighttime scene, like a fairy tale kind of element with this really, really bright full moon. And it's got this great kind of like cerulean blue, feel to it and color tinting. So let's go ahead and make like some fireflies because, even though this is obviously a test map with a plane and a cube, it kind of lacks volume, right? Because we just have this background sky dome that's just rotating and these, really cool sky rays, which I love as well. It kind of feels like it lacks volume. It's just like one dimension in the back and then one plane in the back and one plane in the front here. So let's go ahead and in our browser right click and do a new particle system and call it FX underscore fireflies underscore P. And this is going to be a pretty quick example. We're going to get through this in under 10 minutes. But let's go ahead and assign our fun little glow orb additive that we've been using over and over, and it works perfect for this example. And let's get rid of init velocity. We don't want any velocity to be set. We want the orbit module to take care of this. And let's go ahead and let's do a new init location by right-clicking location, initial location. And I've got these numbers figured out, but we're going to give it a really large volume so we can just place this at the center of our map. So let's do 3000 on X, 3000 on Y, and 500 on Z. And then for min, negative 3000 on X, negative 3000 on Y, and we're going to leave Z at 0. So if we draw this now, we just have this giant green volume, as you can see, but with no negative value on Z, it lays perfectly flat on the ground. So when we center it in our world, it'll just play perfectly. So let's go ahead and just place it so we can see what it's doing really quick. And you can just, in the content browser, find it in your particles group, and then find fireflies and just drag it right here into the world. I'm old school and I typically right click and do add emitter, but I'm trying to get better about that. Hit F4 to bring up the emitter properties with it selected, and then under movement we want to change its location and just 0 X, Y, and Z out. And if there's any rotation that got put in there by accident, you can also get rid of that. So I'm going to hit Control-Shift-N to deselect, and then save your package here, and then hit the little blue arrow to play inside of the viewport. And it's going to warn you because it's an external package, which is okay. This is just for testing purposes. But now as we start walking around, we see our default little orbs just popping in and out. We haven't really done anything with size or color or lifetime, so we're going to go ahead and tweak that. But it's working, and it's laid out inside of our map pretty nicely. So hit escape to get out of that. Let's go back to our particle system and start tweaking some of these values here. I'm going to turn off my grid and then the 3D draw mode on the init location. Let's do a lifetime range of, let's say, 3 and 13. So we're getting a really big stretched out range of how long these live. Let's change our spawn to 60. And this is gonna cause a lot of particles, but these are also really small, so they're pretty cheap. I'm also, just because this is for testing purposes, I'm not really caring about particles too much, but we should stop right around 500, I think. Yeah, so we float around just a little under 500. Let's go ahead and change the size. Let's do an init size range for 15 max on X and 10 on min for X and 0 out the rest. We're just getting a little more size variation there. And then let's go ahead and give it a color that I've already picked out. I like a nice green color so they can complement all those nice blues inside of there and they'll stand out a little more. So let's change our first point that comes by default with color over life. Leave it at time 0 and black it out. And then change point 1 to be at around 0.35 for inval time. And then our RGB value, I've got 1.06 on red, 4.2 on green, and then 0.71 on blue. And then go ahead and add a third point that lives at time 1 and leave it at 0. So now we get a nice fade in and fade out. So you can see they're kind of small, but we're getting a nice little bit of green here. That's going to look really nicely in there. So let's look at it now really quick before we do the orbit module. Remember, we have to save our package and then go ahead and hit test. Looks cool. We've got a lot of nice particles, nice size range. Might want to go a little smaller on the size range for min, but good color. I really dig the color. It complements it nicely. But they're all kind of stagnant. And sometimes, maybe that's what you want. You just want floating particulate in the air. In this case, we want them moving like fireflies, and we want the orbit module to handle that random rotation for us. So let's go back into our Fireflies particle system, and then go ahead and add an orbit module. And by default, go ahead and try to get a view so you can see enough of these. They look all right, but they're spinning really fast. We can look inside of our map, and they're kind of angry fireflies, which, hey, maybe that's, what your level calls for. But we want these to spin a lot less slower, and we want to get a much bigger range for our rotation. So let's address the speed first. And remember, speed is rotation rate. So we'll do a max of, 0.07 we'll start with on X, Y, and Z, and then negative 0.07 on min X, Y, and Z. So this is again for our rotation rate. So we're basically giving it just a little bit of rotation in both clockwise and counterclockwise fashion. So now it's like, okay, cool. These are starting to look a lot better. Their movement is a little subtle though, but what we can do is increase the offset range as well. And remember, the bigger the offset, the faster it will appear. So if we give it a bigger range, let's say on max X, Y, and Z, let's do 250 instead of 50. Now let's go ahead and look at it, and that's pretty cool. That looks really nice. We're getting good range. We get some that fly in front of the camera there. I think they're spinning a little too fast. I think my value of 0.07, which I know sounds silly that that's too much, but small value sometimes, Let's try 0.045 for all of these. Let's do negative 0.045 for all the min values. And then let's go ahead and look at it again, and cool, I like that. I dig that. Let's go ahead and save it in our browser, and then go ahead and hit play. Again, don't worry about that error it gives you. And I like that. That's cool. Very, very sexy. I think they move nicely. I think, they give it a good ambience. They really fit this nighttime scene, right? I could argue that they can go a little smaller, so let's go ahead and just change the size. I'm just doing this off monitor. Init size for max, let's just do 13. And let's see these change. Looks good to me. Let's go ahead and save it and try it one more time. Yeah, looks really good. I really dig this. I think this is a really great effect, and we did it in under 10 minutes. So we're at the 8-minute mark right now. So really cool. Let's move on to our next example.